Assalamu alaikum again. Juma Mubarak. Today we'll be continuing from the words. We're reading the 25th word, the first light, the first ray, first aspect. That helps, and I'll just copy paste the link for everyone to reach it. So, I mean, we've been reading this 25th word for quite a few weeks now. And it's on the miraculousness of the Quran. And it is a sort of commentary, I suppose, on the verse that the author gave in the very beginning, which is, say, if all mankind and all jinn were to come together to produce the like of this Quran, they could not produce the like of it, even if they were to help and support each other. And in previous weeks, we've looked at the multitude of definitions that Nursi has given and what these definitions mean for our lives, and how we can make sense of it. And last week in this first ray, it was talking about the eloquence of the Quran. And so last week, I know we had read from page 379, so I'm one page behind what's shown. I'm going to start again from the paragraph that begins with the Quran. And inshallah, we can read it, think about it together collectively. And just as a reminder, I guess this portion of the text especially is trying to explain the emphasis or the significance of the eloquence within the temporal context in which the Quran was revealed. So, for example, the author had said that at the time of Musa alayhi salam, it was magic that was most sought after. At the time of Jesus, Isa alayhi salam, it was medicine. And at the time of our Prophet, ﷺ, it was about the eloquence and rhetoric of people. And it was at this time that the Quran was revealed. So let me start reading, and then let's try to understand it together. And I need your help, especially, I want to try to read this not to just attain more information, right, about the Quran, because I can learn about the time that the Quran was revealed in and the context and the history and all of these things. I'm not saying are not useful, but at the end of the day, as we emphasize, after this halaqah, after this discussion, I'm going to perhaps shut my laptop off or close the screen, and I'll be back to back. I'll have to face back the day-to-day struggles that I have, the worries I have, the anxieties I have, the relationships that I'm in. And fundamentally, I want solutions to these problems, because these are the problems that follow me. These are the problems that I face. And if we're talking about, this speech that's been given, many definitions that we've discussed about, I mean, at the very fundamental level, the speech of guidance from my Creator, I wanted to give me guidance towards these problems. And how to resolve them, how to make sense of them, how do I understand them? And so, that's the mindset I want to approach with it. If you have a better mindset, please let me know. But I think I'll need help trying to extract some understanding with that mindset as well. So that's just an early invitation for all of you to help me out, inshallah. So let me begin. The Quran, therefore, invited the Arabian orators of that time to reply to even one of the shortest of the surahs, of the chapters. It challenged them with the decree of, if you are in doubt about what we have revealed to our servant, then produce a surah resembling it. This is from chapter 2, verse 23. It also said, if you do not believe, you shall be damned and shall go to hell. It provoked them intensely. Them being the people of the time that gave value to eloquence, right? To these intellectual poetries, I guess. It smashed their pride in fearsome manner. It was contemptuous of their arrogant minds. It condemned them firstly to eternal extinction, and then to eternal extinction in hell, as well as worldly extinction. It said, either dispute me, or you and your property shall perish. And property here can be even your abilities, the qualities that you take such pride in, all of them will go away. If it had been possible to dispute the Quran, is it at all possible that while there was an easy solution like disputing it with 1 or 2 lines and nullifying the claim, they should have chosen the most dangerous and most difficult, the way of war? Yes, is it at all possible that clever people, that politically minded nation, who at one time were to govern the world through politics, should have abandoned the shortest, easiest, and most light way, and chosen the most dangerous, namely that of war, which was going to cast their lives and all their property into peril? For if their literary figures had been able to dispute it with a few words, the Quran would have given up its claim, and they would have been saved from material and moral disaster, whereas they chose a perilous, lengthy road like war. That means it was not possible to dispute in by word. It is possible, so they were compelled to fight it with the sword. So, here we're faced with this sort of narration, I guess, about how the Quran, that some of us may be familiar with, challenges, the people of Arabia, and to produce something that was even similar to a single verse of the Quran. And I guess what he's emphasizing here is, if that had been an alternative for them, producing something of a like quality, why would they have bothered to go to war at their own expense, at their physical, probably monetary, moral expense, right? So I guess the nature of the argument here is that if that option had actually been a viable live option, they would have chosen it. But since it wasn't, since it was not possible for these people who thought themselves arrogant enough or proud enough to be able to, think that they could be better than the Quran, they weren't able to challenge it, I guess. I'm going to continue because I feel like so far the text is pretty straightforward. And, we can always return to it, but if you're all welcome to interrupt me at any point. And Brother Yusuf says, since that path was not chosen, this indicates that path was not possible to pursue. So that's the line of thought that the author is trying to offer us here. Yeah, I don't know if I would say it was not possible, but it was thought not possible, at least. Yeah, if it had been possible, it begs the question, then why wouldn't they have done so? Let's continue reading. If Brother Yusuf wants to say something further, I think I can't tell if that check mark means he wants to or if he can't speak.
Yeah, if I can. So I mean, I didn't understand the part that you have question mark about, to be honest. So, like if yeah, as you said, if it was possible, since it's an easier path to do relative to the war, so it begs the question, as you said, why didn't they follow this path? So, which I guess the author is now saying that, which is an indication that it's not that easy of a thing to do. And not at least easier than having war, getting into this war, risking their own lives. So I guess in this sense, it's not possible humanely. But I don't know what else can be said in terms of, I mean, it seems to be beyond human capacity. But if we say it's not possible, what else can be considered as possible? This is what I'm trying to understand, since you said I'm not sure if it is possible or not. If you can help me with where the question mark is.
Yeah, thank you for that. You know, I'm trying to make sense of it myself here, I guess, but I guess the only part that I'm taking issue with is that the fact that they chose war over trying to, let's say, produce something of the likeness does not necessitate that the other alternative was an impossibility, though it does show that it was not preferred. It, like in a sense, of course, it shows that they may have thought it not possible, but I guess the wording of possibility is so strong that I wouldn't say that this definitely proves that it's not possible for them, that it wasn't possible, but that at least it was not thought possible. I guess that's the distinction I was trying to make. I mean, it's not that important of a point, honestly. But I guess just this by itself is not enough, I guess, to persuade me that this was the reason why they didn't produce something of its likeness. Even though I understand the rationale behind it. Brother Birkan, you can go ahead.
Jazakallah khair. So I understand where Ayşenur is coming from. So when we talk about the possibility, so yes, she's probably taking it as a logical possibility, or even, you know, even if you take it different type of possibilities, like a counterfactual possibility, whatever. So such an argument, yes, wouldn't prove the possibility or impossibility of anything. But we should also don't forget that this is at least at the first read, the author is giving an example from history. And this is just an example, right? We know that authors sometimes does give some examples from history, but for the sake of example, he's not studying history. So that's one thing. Why I'm telling that it's an example from history, because like you cannot prove anything from the history, right? You just lay down some evidences and make your interpretation. And the author is making an argument. I guess the argument is valid. He's saying that they are clever people. So these are the premises. They are clever people. They would choose the easier path if it was possible. They would choose the shortest path, whatever, if it was possible. They didn't choose, therefore, you know, probably it was not possible. So is this a sound argument? Like, does it have to be the true to the extent the historical evidence is true? Like if they are really clever people, if they are really politically minded and would choose the shortest, easiest way, So all these premises needs to be studied. But of course, this is not our job right here. I guess the way we should look at it, again, taking it as just an example to open up the discussion. So the author is talking about eloquence of the Quran and Quran challenging people to saying that, if you don't believe, then bring something similar. No reason to fight. I'm open to be falsified. All my verses are in front of you. Just falsify them and be happy with this. I guess this is really important. Like when I'm thinking about, for instance, what will happen to, let's say, my daughter in these, the country in this time, whatever. I have to protect her from some ideologies. I have to protect her from, wrong paths. But I wouldn't fight against, like I wouldn't declare war against these ideologies or the different paths in the sense that really finding people and then killing them. I wouldn't do that because I think, at least, I believe that I can explain her what is right, what is wrong. I can give her some evidences, and I, rely on her reasoning, her humanity. So there is no reason to, declare war because all these alternative paths, that the paths that I'm trying to protect her from, can be easily neglected, can be easily defeated by, the reason, by just observing the universe. And Quran is telling us the same. Like, I am the interpreter of the universe. I am the interpreter of your life. We said this is the definition of the Quran. Hence, just look at yourself, look at your life. If you can find anything which would cause any dispute against my verses, then you are free from the hook. Like, you don't have to be worried about me. Just say, I disbelieve. So this path being opened, I guess, really important. And to me, at least, the way I understand, the author is talking about this path being opened. Jazakallah khairan.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Very well said. And, he's presenting a sort of historical argument, line of reasoning here, and as an example, which is why I didn't want to dwell too much on the point that I had kind of set to the side. But Brother Abdulaziz, you can please speak up.
Assalamu alaikum. Yeah, I kind of like what Birkan said, because for me personally, I'm not that entertained. I'm not that interested about what happened back then, at least me personally, who won this kind of arguments way back then. Whoever won them already won them. But I think the focus should be on examples at the moment, like the one that Birkan said. I think that could be very useful, at least for me, to discuss, like, examples at the moment of alternatives at the moment. Like if I decline this, am I happy? Like okay, it's fine. I can decline this Quran and then I go on, but did I really feel that joy and happiness far away from it? But other than that, I don't think I'm saying anything complete. Other than that, I find it extremely boring to think about these arguments in the past, and also, just because you fought them, that doesn't mean that you didn't have another choice. That didn't mean that you were right. Maybe you have to use a sword to fight something, but you were also right.
Brother Birkan?
I was also thinking about the opposite. Oh, I muted myself, sorry. I was thinking about the other alternatives. Like when we look at the other so-called interpretation of the universe or life, the things that we experience, we see, interestingly, we see this door for challenge is not opened with them. So for instance, when we look at this tyranny of scientism, people, say we are scientists, magicians, and you have to believe us. You have to follow, what we say. There, although they would claim that no, science can be falsified, this ideology of scientism cannot be falsified because it's just a example of tyranny, nothing else. If you are not following a certain methodology, if you are not, for instance, constrain yourself, limit yourself within the limit of natural order as they would call or as they would define, because what is natural, what is not natural is just, mere the choice of childish caprices, is if you do not follow their definition, you are just ridiculed. So it is really important, like we take this very lightly, that the Quran having such a challenge written explicitly, but we don't see such challenge even implicitly in alternatives today. So this is really important to make this distinction, to make this emphasis, that Quran is calling us to challenge verses, to compare it with our lives. But when you talk with a scientism, supporter, I'm not talking about scientists in general, but this specific ideology. If you say, but whatever you claim, whatever you say doesn't fit my experiences, the answer you will get is that, oh, you are fooling yourself. Your experiences, your life could be misleading. Sometimes, we experience things that that are not true, that are not real. So just accept what we say, and the rest is just pure happiness. So this is really interesting. This is like a really big irony that people who claim to follow a scientific methodology are not open to be falsified, at least in terms of methodology. Jazakallah khairan.
Thank you, Brother Abdulaziz. If you want to, you can just go directly.
Oh yeah. So actually, I was thinking again about it. I think that this line of challenging is more meaningful, at least I'm thinking about myself, if you look back instead of if you're looking ahead. Like if you're just like sitting on your couch, relaxing and not feeling any challenges in your current life, and like, okay, let's see what is the alternative. I don't think that would be as meaningful. But I think if you look back in your life and then you see, like, okay, let's see what was the alternative any better. I think that's more meaningful. It's like you're walking the walk. You already walked the walk instead of just kind of talking the talk about the future.
Thank you both very much. I really enjoy when there's a dialogue amongst our participants rather than just me as a monologue. So I thank you both for that. Brother Abdulaziz, do you want to say something else because your hand's up, or is that just from last time?
Oh, sorry, I'm gonna lower it.
Oh, no worries. I was just wondering. Yeah, thank you. I'm thinking now, how, this verse, if you're in doubt about what we have revealed to our servant, then produce a surah resembling it. And Nursi here is saying, if you don't believe, you shall be damned and shall go to hell, quite frankly, right? And he says that, and he explains it as either dispute me or you and your property shall perish. And I take this to mean, at least for myself right now, either I have to falsify what is being said to me, which is that my life is transient, that I'm impotent, that I'm needy, that I need to see that everything that's given to me is from a creator, from my creator. I need to either falsify all these claims that it's making about my reality as a human being in this world, or you and your property shall perish. Because if I don't falsify it, then I'm faced with the reality that its verses offer me, which is that I am in a state of perishment. I won't just perish, I am in a state of perishment. Yesterday me is gone. Teenage me is gone. My childhood is gone. And every day I am perishing a little bit more. And my property, what property do I really have? I mean, most property that people have is student debt property. But even, beyond that, let's say the qualities that I find in myself, if I can call them my property, the abilities, the intellectual capacities, right? All of these are also perishing, in a state of being perished. And so it's, for how I understand this, is either saying, either I have to be able to deny it to the extent that I falsify it, say that, no, this is not the reality I faced, or, I'm faced with what's going on, which is what it's telling me, what it's demonstrating to me by virtue of the fact of me witnessing existence as I witness it. So in a sense, I mean, this is also applicable to me here and now as well, because I have to either take seriously what my creator is telling me through his speech, or I have to face the fact that, or I have to find and prove and persuade myself an alternative, which I can't seem to. Okay, so I will keep reading if there are no further comments. So here, again, we have this example that's given. And I mean, it's also common sense. He's saying it's common sense that if there was an alternative, why wouldn't they have taken it? They weren't stupid people. They did trade. They had, they wrote these lines of poetry. Why wouldn't they have taken it, right? It's just common sense. Furthermore, there are two compelling reasons for the Quran being imitated. The first is its enemies' ambition to dispute it. The other, its friends' pleasure at imitating it. So there are two, compelling reasons for the Quran being imitated. Right. So either the enemies of the Quran would want to imitate it because they could then say, haha, your claims are false. Here we are able to produce a likeness of it. Or those who are friends to the Quran, who love it, could attain a sort of pleasure from imitating it, right? Because we imitate that which we love. If you hang around a group of friends that you love very much for a sufficient amount of time, you start talking like them, you start acting like them. You want to be like the people that you love. And so in this very sense, if I read a book and I really liked it, I want to be able to produce something like it as well, out of my love for it. So there are two here reasons, and I'm talking out loud because it's helping me understand as well. So there are two reasons for why anyone would want to imitate the Quran. One that has a motive by virtue of being an enemy to it, and by the other by virtue of being a friend to it. So impelled by these, millions of books in Arabic have been written, but not one of them resembles the Quran. Whether learned or ignorant, whoever looks at it and at them is bound to say, the Quran does not resemble these. Not one of them has been able to imitate it. The Quran is therefore either inferior to all of them, and according to the consensus of friend and foe alike, this is completely non-valid and impossible, or the Quran is superior to all of them. Right. So again, I feel like this is pretty straightforward. If there are no comments or questions, if everyone understands it well enough, I can continue on to a question answer part of this text. Let me just wait a second. Okay. So if I say, how do you know that no one has tried to dispute it, and that no one has had sufficient confidence to challenge it, and that no one's help for anyone else was of any avail? That's a potential question we could have. But I see that we have a hand up. Brother Abdulaziz, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just not clear about the previous paragraph. Like, I'm just a little slow. I couldn't follow.
No, you're not slow at all. Thank you for inviting us to return to it. Inshallah, we can all understand it together. So from what I gathered from it was that, again, there are two categories of people that would want to imitate or resemble the Quran. Either those who want to dispute it, disprove it, who are enemies to it, or those who love it so much that they want to imitate it out of pleasure. And here he's saying that millions of books have been written in Arabic, but that not a single one of them is like the Quran. So not a single one of them has been able to imitate it. And that whether someone is well read in Arabic or is little read in Arabic, they can easily say that the Quran does not resemble these, that this written Arabic work does not resemble the Quran, that it has not been able to imitate it. And that regardless of whether you're approaching with the intention to dispute it or honor it, there's a consensus. There's a consensus of those amongst friends and foes of the Quran that, even if we wanted to imitate it for whatever purposes we might have, it is true that nothing has been able to resemble it. And so he's saying, so that means if the Quran is completely and utterly unique, and that either in its uniqueness, it's the worst of the worst, or it's the best of the best. And again, he's saying that it's not possible for it to be the worst of the worst, to be inferior to all other Arabic works, all other works in general, because again, even those who do not like it would say, okay, no, it's not inferior to all of them. It's just that we have not been able to imitate it. So again, I mean, I haven't read millions of Arabic books, but I'm taking that the author here is talking on further information, right? And that based on the consensus of those who have written about the Quran, both from a perspective of, again, wanting to honor it or wanting to dispute it, that these are just the facts that surround it. Okay, alhamdulillah. So let me return to the question that now Nursi asks, and he says, okay, if I go to Nursi and say, well, how do you know that no one has tried to dispute it, and that no one has had the sufficient confidence to challenge it, and that no one's help for anyone else was of any avail. Like, how do we know this? What maybe someone did try to dispute it. So how do we come to such conclusions? That's what I'm thinking. And he says the answer: if it had been possible to dispute it, most certainly it would have been attempted. So had there been a possibility of imitation to disprove it, then definitely, certainly, someone would have tried it. For it was a question of honor and pride, and life and property were at risk. So the stakes were too high not to have tried it, I think, is what he's saying. You have your whole entire lifestyle. You have all of your property. You have honor and pride, which outweigh even those, at stake. And so if those were at stake, things that of which you hold to a most valuable degree, highest degree of value, then of course you would have tried it. Why shouldn't you have tried it? If it had been attempted, numerous people would have supported such an attempt, for they also had stake in those same values. For those who obstinately oppose the truth have always been many. And if many people had supported it, they surely would have found fame. So it would have been impossible for someone to have tried it and tried to dispute it and attempt this dispute. It would have been impossible for them to not be known to a certain degree. For insignificant contests even attracted the wonder of people and found fame in stories and tales. So an extraordinary contest and events such as that would never have remained secret. Yeah, I mean, look at us now. We have really cute like cat videos on YouTube that are super popular and watched by millions. Like the smallest, minutest things gather popularity and fame. And even if the platforms are different from now to 1500 years ago, even insignificant things, even things of little importance, gather the attention of people. So how could it be that something in which such high stakes were involved would not have brought about credence or reports of it? The most ugly and infamous things against Islam have been passed down and become famous, but apart from one or two stories about Musaylima the liar, no such thing has been related. Musaylima was very eloquent, but when compared with the exposition of the Quran, which possesses infinite beauty, his words pass into the chronicles as nonsense. Thus, the miraculousness of the Quran's eloquence is as certain as 2 times 4. 2 times 2 equals 4, and that is how it is. Okay. So I mean, I think what he's saying makes sense. It's even the most minutest, most terrible things that people have written or said about Islam have gained attention, have gained traction. So how could it be that something such as this would not have? So at least the fact that the miraculousness, the indisputability of the miraculousness of the Quran, its eloquence, is certain. Is we can know the certainty through such a line of thought, is what he's saying. And again, I think there's a sense of common sense here. Not like a logical necessity, but common sense. Okay. Okay, well, I mean, I'm continuing through the text because things are straightforward, but I see that we have a hand by Brother Yusuf, so please go ahead.
So I'm just trying to think about in general, as he started with the example of other prophets' miracles. So like in the example of Isa alayhi salam, medicine was popular at his time. So doctors know what they can do, what can be done. But Isa alayhi salam does something which they know is not doable within by someone who they would consider as human, because human knowledge, human capacity is very well known for them. So doing something beyond this, like resurrecting the dead, for example, or curing leper for that time, they say, well, we know what can be done the best, and this is not something that can be done. Likewise, in the case of Musa alayhi salam, so those people are magicians, so they know all the tricks and how magic works also. But what they see, they say, no, this is not magic. This is beyond what we can think, what we can do. So in the case of speech, I'm trying to understand if anything is different when it comes to speech. So those people are masters of language, so they know how to make most out of language to actually they were using it as weapons, as he was explaining. So they know how to warp the words, how to put them into order to make a certain point. But then when something like Quran comes, they say this is not human, this is not possible. Actually, this is what Quran is challenging. He's saying that if you are honest about your claim that Quran is speech of man, then it should be doable by man, I guess. So just bring an example. So this is the challenge in there. So yeah, as you said, it's more like a common sense example. But I'm trying to see if, as in the case of, because this just challenge is still open to us today. For example, if Isa alayhi salam was taking X-ray of people at his time, and we would say, well, now we can do X-rays. So although it might have been a miraculous thing for his time, not for now. But also it's interesting that what he showed was not X-ray either. So it was like resurrecting the dead, giving life. But today we are not even able to define what life is. Forget about giving life to someone. So in the case of Muhammad والسلام, so when it is about speech, so I guess the reason that it is being a little bit awkward is I can understand speech. I can make sense of speech. So I feel like since I can appreciate something as if, or I speak it, I read it, like the words are coming out of my mouth. If I open up Mus'haf and start reading it, so it might feel as if here it is, it's out of my mouth. Unlike replicating Isa alayhi salam's miracle, as if I might get a wrong sense that it's coming out of my mouth and I can make sense of it, sort of a thing. But I guess the point in here is, am I or we collectively, is it possible for us as humans to come up with something as such? So is it within our boundaries in terms of time, in terms of place, including future? So I guess this is the question. I don't know if so far the way he put the example is more like a intuition. I guess this is what he is talking to. So in terms of my intuition, it gives us a very strong intuition that it's not possible. But yeah, other than that, as you were questioning, now that I'm much more clear about what you were questioning, so is it impossible, or is it can be proven to be logically impossible? So yeah, I don't know about this part of the story. So I just wanted to clarify it for myself.
Thank you, Brother Yusuf. I think you raised a really important point and concern. And you know, when thought in reference to the examples of Musa alayhi salam and Isa alayhi salam, I think it becomes a little bit more clear that what was being created for them what people were experiencing was clearly something whose source was not of the nature of this universe, right? And in what ways, it seems that because of the nature of the Quran, in terms of the mode that it's being delivered to us, speech, it seems so within reach, right? Like I speak right now and words are coming somehow out of my mouth, and it seems like something that, if I didn't think too much about it, I could say, yeah, I'm creating speech and this is speech. So why should that not be something that is accessible for me to create? But it is the very fact that it's something so not of the nature of this universe and so not within the reach of my human ability, capacity, and yeah, I think I have to think further on this, but I think that's where you could actually, if you wanted to make a sort of developed argument out of it, perhaps for whatever purpose, I think that's from where you could draw out the fact that it is impossible, in all ways, for it to be the speech of anything but the creator, but the source of all existence. So thank you for that. So I couldn't help but kind of put that comment out before, but we had some hands up, so I will say them in the order that I saw them. So first, Brother Abdulaziz, if you still would like to make a comment, please go ahead, and then we can have Brother Birkan, and then we can have Brother Yusuf, inshallah. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum again. So I was kind of hesitant actually to speak again, but because this is really kind of complex, but I'm thinking that we need to think about what we are measuring about this challenge. Like, what is it about the challenge that we want to say, okay, this was a good one, or this is like a nice runner-up to Quran. So I was thinking about that, and it kind of brings me back to the point that we are kind of the jury, and we are the one who's being judged. Like, for me, a challenge is as good as Quran if I accepted it, and if it works for me, then I don't see why it's not a challenge that worked. So it's kind of complicated. Sorry, my thought's not complete. I'm gonna pass.
Not at all, thank you. And please feel free to speak again whenever you'd like to, further express your thoughts. Again, I'm just gonna say the order, and then after the other one finishes talking, please don't wait for me to interrupt again. So Brother Birkan, Brother Yusuf, and then Brother Nazmul can go ahead.
Oh, Jazakallah khair. Can I speak now? Just kidding, you don't have to answer here. So I think we shouldn't, or at least I don't think I should, spend much time on talking about whether it is we can prove it is possible or not. Like, we're talking about the eloquence of Quran. We're talking about the eloquence of speech. We're talking about the eloquence of the verses, the meaning it possesses. But it's about the eloquence. It's about the way it is narrated, the way it is being told, and the way I experience it. So even, when we talk about the eloquence of Quran, trying to prove something, like as a logical argument, I guess it shows that something is missing in my understanding. That whether it is, possible to prove that it cannot be a human-made, again, like we're talking about eloquence. It's you try and you fail. You try and you are successful. It's not about proving something. And I guess we also sometimes, when I look at myself, I take these logical proofs as a means of laziness. Like a very clever mind will prove something for me, and I will say, okay, it is true because it's proved. There is no way to dispute it. But when it comes to eloquence of Quran, when it comes to the reality of Quran, it's something that has to be lived by you. That you have to take it, you have to embrace it, live it, test it, try it, whatever you want to call, and see the results by yourself. Without experience it, without listening it, and telling that, and checking yourself, like how it sounds, or how it means, what it means, sitting down and trying to prove something, it's like not, living the purpose, not fulfilling the purpose. So just as a side note, I guess, like talking about, again, the logical proofs or something even in such a topic, to me, it shows something. It's a sign of, it's a symptom of something, I guess.
Jazakallah khair for diagnosing me, Brother Rikan. So, yeah, I was thinking about my own abilities about writing in English, for instance. I see some papers written by some human people. When I read it, it flows so beautifully. And I say it makes perfect sense. I understand it perfectly. And I feel like I can write it up until I sit in front of the keyboard to try to write something. Then I realize my inability to write as such. Still, I can get some sense, some impression that, well, if I read as much, if I study as much, I will be able to do that. So still there's this room, I guess. But as Brother Birkan was saying, apparently in the case of Quran, at least from my point of view, where now I'm looking at it, because the Arabic language, I'm not well versed, or I'm not versed in it at all. So I cannot even say I can write a single sentence in Arabic that's going to make sense to anyone. But I guess in terms of me trying to explain things as Quran is explaining, only this aspect of it, even that is beyond my reach, and I can confirm this. But another aspect, I guess, that is being specifically emphasized in this first light is, since he is bringing up Arabic also, I guess the author is maybe putting a bit of a more emphasis in the original eloquence of the language also. This is what my impression from here is. I mean, yes, in terms of its explanations or soundness of the way it speaks, the way the arguments are so in harmony within itself of the Quran, and also in agreement with the existence. This is its eloquence in meaning, but also in terms of eloquence of the language, which I felt like is being emphasized in here primarily. This is why bringing us evidence from history is making a point also, saying that others have tried, which were much more experts of this language than any of you guys so far, but even their accumulation was not able to bring forward anything that can challenge Quran. So in this regard, I guess it becomes a evidence that I can benefit here and now.
Thank you. Brother Nazma, yeah, if you want to go ahead.
Okay, assalamu alaikum, guys. So I just have some thoughts on this challenge of the Quran. Um, I don't think we need to, I guess, deny the meaning of the challenge itself. I think we can take I think we could take the challenge at face value, because I mean, this is how most people, if they read those verses of bring one surah like it or bring something like the Quran, I think most people would interpret those verses as on their face value that you know bring something as eloquent as the Quran or something of that nature, right? Uh, Having said that, there are a few things. The first thing is, when the Quran makes that challenge, it's challenging people to produce something like it in terms of eloquence, right? In terms of its uniqueness, and the key thing is it's also must produce the same effect. Yeah, so it must have the same influence. It must also have the same themes, and it must also have the same type of depth that allows for readability and rereadability, right? So I mean, these are all I mean, these aren't like objective measures, but these are like semi-objective measures that we can apply to other works of literature too. So the great books of humanity that have existed, I mean, they exist for a reason. So you can't you can't just say tomorrow, let's get together 10 groups, 10 PhDs, and then reproduce John Milton. It's not going to work, because poetry and literature, I'm not saying that the Quran is poetry or literature, but because it's made up of words, I'm just using that as an example, right? But you can't say tomorrow that let's do a PhD program and get 200 best PhDs to reproduce John Milton, right? Paradise Lost. I mean, this is not even nobody. People would consider this foolish, because uh, John Milton as a poet, his uniqueness, like he produces the whole thing, right? In a type of revelation way, right? I mean, he narrates the whole poem in a few months, and it becomes one of the greatest classics of English literature. And other people that know, I guess, the eloquence of English, you know, give his poem that title of the most eloquent English poem, let's say, right? Because they're familiar with the measures of eloquence, and then they give that title of the most eloquent poem to, let's say, Paradise Lost. So it doesn't matter what people later on come and say about that poem. It's established in history as, what we would agree on as the most eloquent English poem, right? And I think we can use similar types of measures with the Quran, because um, and it's actually easier with the Quran, because Arabic actually has objective measures of eloquence. So there's an entire science of eloquence, and there are actually like books that have been written where, I mean, there's a famous one by Imam Bakr who's one of the great scholars of Islam, and he actually looked at every single sentence of the Quran and wrote out every other variation that sentence could have been in, and then he shows you why the variations are somehow lacking in one objective measure of eloquence versus another, and why the Quranic use of the sentence is the most eloquent. So there have been attempts like this to show the objective eloquence of the Quran, so to speak. Um, but in terms of eloquence, like I mentioned, I think a few weeks ago, that the people that could have challenged the Quran, and everybody agrees that the pre-Islamic poets were the most eloquent masters of the Arabic language. So the people who could have potentially challenged the Quran, and um, they had about 23 years to do that, right? So they had 23 years, and for sure that they were working. They were definitely trying to challenge the Quran, but none of them could do it. So the people that could have potentially done it, none of them could do it, right? And now it just gets more and more difficult as time goes on, because let's say you reproduce, let's say a surah, right? That rhymes. Like you make up something in Arabic that rhymes like the Quran, And actually, it's not that unique. The rhyme of the Quran, it's something in Arabic called saja. So there are other Arabic writing that uses that type of rhyming, right? But you produce the rhyme, but let's say you didn't produce the eloquence. Or let's say you might have a line that's eloquent, but can you produce 600 pages of it? But let's say, okay, you produce a poem that has a nice theme, but will it have the same effect as the Quran? I mean, can it, if you take that book and you go into the, let's say, Amazon rainforest and you get some wild tribes and you tell them, tell them this thing that you made up, will you somehow transform them into a civilization, right? Because this is what the Quran did with the Arabs. So the farther you get away from the Quranic, from the period of revelation, the exponentially harder it gets to, I guess, fulfill this challenge, right? Because not only do you have to produce the eloquence of the Quran, which itself is almost impossible, right? Um, you also have to reproduce the effect that the Quran had on the Arabs in order for it to be a contender to the Quran, right? I mean, you can't. Let's say there's a, and I'll end with this example. Uh, let's say there's a college student who like really doesn't like Shakespeare, right? And he just doesn't like Shakespeare, and he says, "I'm going to challenge Shakespeare." And so let's say he writes a very nice play, and people like it. Um, but the fact of the matter is that there's no way that anybody after Shakespeare could somehow overwrite him from history or challenge him, because anything that they do is actually inspired by by what Shakespeare wrote, right? So like he set the frame of the English language itself. So the same thing with the Quran. There are people now that are actually criticizing the grammar of the Quran. Now these people don't even know that the Quran actually formalized Arabic grammar. So right, so it's like you're trying to spit at the sun, but the spit's falling in your own face. Like this is why I'm saying it gets exponentially harder to meet the challenge of the Quran the farther you go from the period of revelation. And it's an objective fact that the people who could have challenged it, and they had every reason to challenge it. They had every reason to challenge it because they were kuffar, they were opposing the message and so on. They were looking for any type of weakness, and they definitely tried to challenge it, but they couldn't. So and for me, I think if we take that objective measure, it works. The Quranic challenge, it still hasn't been met, and most likely it won't be met in the future either, because it would take. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not even sure how you would even meet the challenge of the Quran. I mean, you can't produce the impact of the Quran, right? I mean, no book can do that in the modern world. So those are some thoughts that I had.
Brother Birkan, you can go ahead.
Oh, sorry, probably it was from the previous one.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, really for enriching this discussion with your thoughts. Yeah, I mean, I'm just I'm thinking about it all, and I mean, I don't have anything additional to say on these points, but I think all of your comments are very valuable and add value to this conversation that we're having. So if there are no other inquiries or comments at this time, let me continue on to the second aspect. Okay. So second aspect, we shall now explain in 5 points the wisdom of the Quran's miraculousness contained in its eloquence. So 5 points regarding the wisdom of the Quran's miraculousness, which is contained in its eloquence. First point, There is a wonderful eloquence and purity of style in the Quran's word order. From beginning to end, Isharatul Ijaz, signs of miraculousness, demonstrates this eloquence and conciseness in the word order. So Isharatul Ijaz, Signs of Miraculousness is another book written by Nursi, one of his earlier works. The way the second, minute, and hour hands of a clock each complete the order of the others, that is the way all the sentences of the all-wise Quran and its words and the order in the relationships between the sentences and words have been expounded in Isharatul Ijaz from its first page to its last. Whoever wishes may look at that and see this wonderful eloquence in the word order. Here we shall mention one or two examples in order to demonstrate the word order in the parts of a sentence. So here, I guess this first point is emphasizing the particular eloquence that the Quran demonstrates through the word order of its verses. So for example, but if a breath of your sustainer's punishment touches them. This is Quran chapter 21, verse 46. And I want to actually I think we should look at the Arabic too, as little as we may understand from it still. I think it would just be good to have it up. Let me see. Okay, so this is from Surah Al-Anbiya. And we'll just read it here.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ولئن مستهم نفحة من عذاب ربك ليقولن يا ويلنا إنا كنا ظالمين.
Okay. And again, the first part of this verse says, but if a breath of your sustainer's punishment touches them. In this sentence, it wants to point out the punishment as terrible through showing the severity of the least amount. That is to say, it expresses littleness or fewness, and all the parts of the sentence look also to this littleness or fewness and reinforce it. So is it saying, I guess I'm trying to understand that the word order itself, that the words, the structure of the phrasing of the sentence itself is in support of the content of the verse as well, because it's talking about just a breath of my sustainer's punishment. The notion of something of severity of the least amount, right? And he's saying all parts of the sentence look also to this littleness or fewness and reinforce it. Thus the words, but if, right, so the starting with, but if signify doubt, and doubt looks to littleness or fewness. And thank you, Brother Yusuf, for highlighting it here for us. The word touches means to touch lightly and expresses a small amount. All right. Okay. The word touches means to touch lightly and expresses a small amount. And just as the word a breath is merely a whiff, so is it in the singular form. So is it in the singular form. So grammatically, it is a masdar, mara, and signifies once. Also the tanween indicating indefiniteness in a breath. So I'm also switching back here to, so the tanween. indicating indefiniteness in a breath, expresses littleness or fewness, and means it is so insignificant that it can scarcely be known. Okay. The word of so the grammatical structure is what he's saying of the words itself are related to the content of what is being communicated, and that itself, that's I know we're not trying to talk about the Quran as poetry, but even in poetry, that there's a beauty in that, having the words, the structures, the sounds related to what the meaning that you're trying to express. The word of signifies division or a part. It means a bit and indicates paucity. The word punishment points to a light sort of punishment in relation to chastisement, nakal, or penalty, iqab, and suggests a small amount. And by alluding to compassion and being used in a place of subduer, all compelling or avenger, the word sustainer indicates littleness or fewness. It says, if the small amount of punishment suggested in all this paucity has such an effect, you can compare how dreadful divine chastisement would be. How much then do the small parts of this sentence look to one another and assist one another? How each reinforces the aim of the whole. This example looks to the words and aim to a small degree. So he's giving a small example here, and very beautiful one. And even if my knowledge of Arabic grammar is not extensive at all, but I think even if we don't have knowledge of the grammar, the idea here is that again, from what I understand, and others who know more can please feel free to add, is that the different aspects of the sentences, the different aspects of the words, all kind of support each other, look to each other, kind of further emphasize the meaning that is being offered. And so I did see the hands that were up. I just wanted to finish reading the paragraph. Brother Nazmo, you can please go ahead, and then we can have Brother Abdulaziz. And before all of that, I'll just read Brother Yusuf's comment, and he can elaborate further if he wants. He says, every element in the sentence gives hand in hand, strengthening the point one after the other, like a perfect team working for an ultimate aim. That was very eloquently said. Thank you, Brother Yusuf. Yes, exactly. And now, please, Brother Nazmo, and then Brother Abdulaziz. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so I just want to point out, masatum, the word means to touch, but it seems weird in English because lightly touching and touching, it's that there's no like different word for touch. So, but in Arabic there are several words for touch, but massa is like is a very, very light touch. And the other thing, I don't think Nursi mentions this because I mean there's like 200 things you could say about this one ayah, so he's not going to mention everything. But saying min adabi, right? The min there. So instead of saying nafhatul adabi, so the breath of punishment, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said nafhatum min adabi. So a breath, from like a part of the punishment, right? So again there, like even that particle, right? So even the particle is also adding to the littleness of the meaning. So it's as if no single letter is like placed there purposelessly. Yeah. So it's very interesting, that verse. And the other thing I want to mention is while a person may be able to, let's say, craft a very beautiful sentence, it's near impossible, and this is why we have literature and poets and these men of genius. It's almost near impossible to keep doing that for the entirety of your work, right? Even the great literary figures, I mean, they can't do that. Even people like Homer, right? That everybody like worships him as the founder of literature and Western civilization. If you read some of his books, the Odyssey and Iliad, I mean, sometimes you fall asleep because um, it's just so bad, right? But the specialty of the Quran is that this level of eloquence is repeated in every single ayah. So, I mean, this is why it's almost impossible to replicate it. That's something that it's not only like one or two ayahs that this type of analysis can be done. It's possible in every single ayah, and all the ayahs flow together. There's a theme, and it adds to that bigger picture. So that's like one of the objective measures that you can use to determine eloquence. Jazakallah khair.
Thank you. Really, that's lovely. Yeah, I think you know, the more you learn, even just about the lightly touching, you know, these are subtleties that add beauty to this. Brother Abdulaziz, please go ahead.
Yeah, so you were reading the English. My English ears are like not that good, so you might have said this and I missed it. But since I'm one of those here who know Arabic, one interesting thing was the word nafhatun, which is in Arabic grammar there is nakira and ma'rifa, which is the known and unknown. And if the sentence was structured as وَلَئِن مَسَّتْهُمْ النَّفْحَةُ مِنْ عَذَابِ رَبِّهِمْ, the known one, oh, it's already there. Someone is highlighting it. Okay, yeah, that was it. The nakira and ma'rif, it was just really interesting. Yes, we got it, Yusuf.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, even just repeating these points is really, really nice. You know, obviously the purpose of our discussion is not to study the grammar of this, but I find this very exciting and just genuinely lovely to observe and discuss and study. Okay, so again, he's not even going in depth here. And you know, if you're interested, you can check out the other text that he mentioned, Signs of Miraculousness, Isharat al-Ijaz for that. But it's he's trying to give a small example of how eloquence in terms of word order and you know, grammatical structure is exemplified in just one sentence of a verse in the Quran. So we are coming, you know, a little low on time. Let me just figure out what we should do for a second. Okay, let me have Brother Yusuf talk now.
So I guess in the English text, it's not very clear what he is saying with this. Grammatically, it's a masdar marra and signifies once. So like I don't know Arabic grammar so I don't claim to be knowing it to any level, but in my notes previously, so the author, I guess, in here is emphasizing that the form of the verb that is being used in here is, so there are multiple forms that could have been used, but the one that is being chosen, that verb family, is expressed to used to express a meaning that happens only once. So I guess this is what he means in this sentence. Grammatically, it's a masdar marra and signifies once. It only happens once. It's not like a verb family which is used for an ongoing action, but something that happens once. So I guess overall, what the author in here is pointing out to is every single word in this sentence is put together with to the same target. So working together as if, like think about a computer this was happening more in the old days. I don't know if it's still happening. So you put multiple different things like a screen card, then some sound card, then I don't know, like a wireless card, whatever. And then there's motherboard. But since they're coming from multiple manufacturers, when you put them together, it's not working perfectly. Sometimes you get glitches. Sometimes one update for the software is contradicting another software, so it stops working after some point. But having something perfectly working together as if all of them came from the same factory, and this factory has planned everything so perfectly that flawlessly it's working. So this sentence, the example of this sentence is such a one that all the words are coming from as if separate places, but like a alchemy. Somebody is taking all different elements into their hand and then making gold out of it. So this is what this sentence is looking like, taking all the words, picking them so carefully, and then all of them leads to the same goal, supporting the same idea. This also reminds me of how I should study Quran actually, since the words are so carefully picked to lead me to a ultimate goal of making a point so clear to me. Maybe just reading it from translation is not going to help me that much because I'm going to lose all these beauties in there, which is, since it's a matter of meaning, the meaning is growing on me as I see these details in there. So I guess this is also an explanation, an example of how I can make more out of Quran.
Okay, so we have a few minutes left. I'm going to give the mic to Abdulaziz and then Nazmul and Brother Yusuf. It seems like you're getting beat up in the comment section. I don't know if you want to defend yourself, but go ahead.
Okay, this will be a quick one. I really like that point that Yusuf made about like the perfection of these sentences actually should also influence how we read them. Not, I wasn't actually going to highlight what he said about like reading them in Arabic, since the translation basically gets them to lose a lot of their beauty, but also how to approach them, because the perfection in the language is probably also going along with perfection in meaning and thinking about it as guidance.
Yeah, I just had something to add. Just to keep in mind that we could still benefit from reading the Quran in English. But the interesting thing with the Arabic is that sometimes a verse it could have multiple meanings, multiple not contradictory meanings, but complementary meanings with the same Arabic sentence, right? And what usually the translators do is they interpret one of the meanings as the for example, as the thing that they put in the translation. So this is like one of the beauties of knowing the Arabic language. And my Arabic isn't that good yet, but even just knowing basic Arabic, one sees that you'll come across a verse that it could mean two complementary meanings at the same time, right? And this is from the eloquence of the Quran. Just to give you a quick example, the famous verse "Qul huwallahu ahad," the huwa there, "Qul huwa," it could mean say, he is God the One. That's one of the meanings. It could also mean the huwa there. It could be what's in. They have a pronoun in Arabic called a pronoun of circumstance, like it means like it is the case that. So that verse, it could actually mean say it is the case that God is one. So, and it could mean both of those things at the same time. So this is one of the beauties of just such a simple surah like a surah Ikhlas. It could have such a wealth of meaning. And the other thing that I wanted to mention is the the words of the Quran are actually, if you look up I mean, you can if you want, but if you look up an Arabic word from the Quran in just like a regular Arabic dictionary, it's not really giving you I mean, it'll give you like a general idea of the word, but if you look in a classical Arabic dictionary, you'll see like the richness of the words that the Quran uses, because it'll tell you, this word actually comes from this root, and this is why the Arabs use this word. And then when you see why Allah used that word, it blows your mind, because there's a very specific reason why Allah would use, let's say, nafha instead of something else. Um, so so all these aspects just make the Quran like an inexhaustible treasure. And sometimes it's actually even daunting to even like read it, I guess, at least for me personally, because I feel that just cursorily reading it is, I guess, not doing the job. But yeah, it's very, very beautiful.
Thank you, everyone, for your comments. Yeah, I think as we conclude today's discussion, I think it's clear that it's clear that knowledge of the Arabic reveals these beauties and this eloquence, and we should be encouraged to study as much as we can. But at the same time, I don't think we should, not that anyone is saying this, we should not feel that the message of the Quran is out of our reach or inaccessible to us due to reading it in English or in another language, and most importantly, knowing how to approach this speech, knowing how to benefit from it, knowing how to extract or understand guidance from it. These are all equally as important. So, inshallah, I'm going to end today's discussion, and yes, I agree with Nazmul's comment that one of the eloquences of the Quran is that even though it's very elegant, we can still understand it and benefit it without knowing all the technical stuff, right? The fact that it is accessible to us, the fact that regardless of the time, the place that I'm reading it, that it is speaking, that my creator is speaking directly to me, to my needs, and to my worries, and to that which I seek. So inshallah, let's continue. Let's continue next week from we had like one or two sentence left, but I'm not going to push it further on. So let's continue next week, inshallah, from where we left off. And subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and Juman Barak again. Wow.